Hello, hello, hello from I guess, the warmth and safety of our homes. I'm still not used to this COVID-19 thing, but what I am used to and very happy about is that this is Arts Respond. We're back on the air. It's a collaboration between WNHH Radio and the Arts Council of Greater New Haven. I'm Lucy Gellman. This is our first episode of 2021, which has not been the beautiful silver-lined year that I think we were all hoping for. Um, but a huge silver lining of this year and of my life is Nadine Nelson. Nadine is the founder of Global Local Gourmet. She wears many, many hats. She's a multimedia artist and interdisciplinary artist in the city and has blessed numerous places with her craft as well. And she is most recently the creative in residence at the New Haven Free Public Library. So today we'll be talking about that. Nadine, welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Happy New Year. Happy New
I'm
Cheer.
so, yeah, new cheer. I like that. Yes. And I'm so happy that you could join us today. So the first thing I want to ask is for folks who maybe haven't heard this term creative in residence before, what does a creative residence do?
So the creative in residence is, a creative. They can be an artist. I think a person before has been a photographer, all different types of things. As you said, I'm a interdisciplinary artist. My concentration is in food art and social sculpture and art interventions. So that's like kind of creating spaces for people to come into and interact and have a lot of different experiences depending on who you are and how you interact with whatever I set up. Um, so being the creative in residence for the library has been really fun. I am a trained educator, so I try and bring um, my teaching background. I try and bring my background in regard to food and being a chef, in regard to art. So I just been having a really good time and having fun. It's symbolic for me because I grew up going to the Mitchell Library after school when I went to St. Aidan's from 5th to 8th grade. And so, it's like great that I get to give back and be part of a New Haven institution that I really believe in.
So I have other questions about being a creative in residence, but I want to go into the way back machine because although I have had you on the show several times before, I don't think we've talked about young Nadine and young Nadine's relationship with the library. So um, I would love to know more about that because I know that libraries can be very formative places for young minds.
Well, I moved to New Haven when I was 10 from Toronto. So it was a very, very different place. And so I moved from being like in this kind of multicultural environment to a very segregated environment. I moved from going to public school to going to private school and parochial school at that. So I wasn't Catholic. And so every day after school, we would walk over to the Mitchell Library. And there was a librarian she was a Black librarian actually, named Mrs. Isaacs. And so, I don't think you were supposed to, have the library as daycare, but my aunt was very persuasive and my cousin and I were really good kids. And so we were able to go there every day after school and we would help her shelve books and then do our homework. And then she would give us a quarter to go get really nice brownies at a bakery that's no longer there, but there would be great brownies with icing that we'd be able to get. And, I loved reading growing up. I was an only child till I was 14. So I grew up going to the library by myself on the bus, probably when I was like 7, my mom taught me how to do that. And we used to have a library mobile and stuff like that. So, I mean, I just loved libraries. Like being that I moved to New Haven when I was 10, it was kind of rough in the 80s. And so it was a really safe place to be. It was a refuge, and it was a place to like feed my curiosity, because I love all different types of things. And I went to Hamden Hall and started going to the Yale Library. At that time, you would be able to go to the Yale Library, and they had the little private rooms, and I used to use those as my office. So,
Oh, wow. Yeah, and now you can't get, I've tried, and you can't get in. I mean,
no.
definitely during COVID, but even before COVID, if you didn't have the magic thing that,
Yeah, no, before you could just go in, it
yeah.
was open like all through high school. Like all of Yale was like more open than you could, go to a lot of different things, different be in different buildings and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, and I mean, I've worked with the library before, um, with a program that I have called Master Cooks Core, and we have done programming like how to eat on $4 a day, and some other like one-off kind of programs. So it's great to do a variety of programs. Like this weekend, I'm doing the mini spa, which is like great.
Hmm.
I love that they have the make and take bags, and I've done that in collaboration the last two, and the next one coming up also with Echo Works. So, it's great to play with people that I already collaborate with, and then, bring it all together even more. So, next month, we're making chocolate, and we're gonna we're gonna print out molds. So I like that aspect, of working with the different machines that I might not have been privy to. So that's going to be great, making molds. We just talked this week about different love symbols beyond just like a heart or a kiss. So, we might do some onks, some claddagh, the Irish claddagh,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it's great because it's like I like all different kind of mediums pretty much. So I like to kind of bring them together, and the library has been really open and so supportive. So that has
Yeah. And so I want to know more about that collaborative relationship, but I also have been interested to just hear from artists. So artists and creatives are, and educators actually are, cobblers by nature. And that's often because um, we live in a society that makes them do that and sort of have all of these jobs that allow them to survive. But I would love to know both a little more about the role of role of the library in your life, because you're a creative, you're an educator, you're also a mom, um, and and then also how how this past year has been for you as someone who also wears all of those hats.
um so I mean the library when I moved back to New Haven 10 years ago was great because my daughter was 2, and so I would bring her to different play dates. They used to have a weekly meetup with kids and parents in Westville. We would go to, they had one in Spanish. I've always loved going to the Stetson Library and Diane's programs that she's had there. Soleil has done painting with Catro, and learning chess and stuff like that. So I mean, I think the library has really great programs, and I think that people should get on their list. There's all different variety of things, and especially like with E Squared, if people are unfortunately like unemployed, or they have time, there are people, you can work with me, or you can work with Marina, who's the entrepreneur in residence, and set up office hours with us. So like every Tuesday, have office hours from 12 to 2, and people can set up a time online, and we can either do Zoom or we call. And I have a couple clients that they're regulars, and they tell me about what they're working on, and then I give them advice. Because not only being a creative, I've been a business owner since
Right.
like part-time since college, but then full-time for almost 15 years. And so I think that a lot of people don't realize that being in business is kind of being creative, like especially like
Yeah.
last year, for instance, and not to use the crazy word pivot, but you have to be malleable as a business owner. And I've always been malleable. I think that because I like different things, and I can service different segments of um, the population. And so I'm not a traditional chef. Like I do stuff behind the scenes, like curriculum and program planning and producing events. And so, last year I was a little disconcerted because Soleil turned 12 and I was going to finally come back out and break out and do my events again. So
Mm.
a lot of in-person events, which I used to do at the beginning of, my business. And then, so I curated a show, and that was in Jersey City that had been in New London. So that was really great. And then, we had the opening, and then we had the closing because
Yeah.
like there were supposed to be all these events, and then it was just at the beginning. And so like I wasn't thinking about doing anything online because I had envisioned the installation and the show as in person. And so it's like, channeling Oshun, and transforming through love in the five senses. So it's like, very tactile, smelling things, seeing things. So it's like to make that, I hope to maybe make it online for this year. And maybe because I don't know if we're going to be able to have an in-person show, to be able to do that, just like Stir the Pot was in person. And then we just got a grant to put it online and do a website and then transform our events from in
Yeah.
person to virtual. So, I mean, I think that, I specialize in interactive stuff. I normally do not like being on the computer per se, but it has it does have its positives when you have to do it, like. And so like with the library, I would hope that I would be able to do in-person events because I'm more in-person person. But it's been great to do the events online because you know, when you do a cooking class, I just cook and then it's over. I'm
Yeah.
not buying stuff for 18 people. I don't have to clean up for 18 people. So there's those things. And then there's the kind of immediacy, the being able to tape things and then being able to deal with people from not only New Haven, but all around the country or all around the world, so that it's been fun and interesting.
Yeah, and I know, so one of the things that you have been doing as a creative in residence is curating this series of discussions with other creatives in the city. And I would love to hear, I got so excited when I saw sort of who was on the roster. I mean, I'm a champion of New Haven. I'd be excited if I saw any New Haven names. I love anyone who's watching. I'm worried about someone getting offended, but I got excited. And so how did you sort of say, I want to be able to dig a little deeper with this person? And I know that there was just a wonderful story from Brian Slattery in the New Haven Independent about the series as well.
Yes. And so it's called Co-Create. And I thought about it because I have to have two days where I do office hours. And so a lot of people don't know like to call, like, like what do you call a creative for? Like what can, you
Yeah.
know, I talk to Nadine about probably, and then especially since, you think about my stuff as food art and everything like that. But then people don't know that, I've, been part owner of a food truck. And in doing so, like we've had a Kickstarter where we raised $60,000 in 6 weeks, and that I have a certificate in fundraising. And, my life before this as a dean and educator of community relations was to fundraise in non-traditional ways. And so, I do approach like finance, business, making money creatively. But a lot of people are not going to necessarily feel inspired, I know, to call me. So I thought, well, what can I do to ensure that I'm doing my art? Because I have a lot of jobs and a lot of hats, as you said. And so I wanted to make sure that I carved out time to make sure that I did art. and that I took this opportunity not only just to do programs, but also deepen my practice and allow me to do my practice. And so it allows me to work on whatever I'm working on. It allows people to see another creative or artist work on what they're working on and then see a variety of processes. Because I think that a lot of people don't might not understand the artistic process or the creative process.
Right.
So um that's it's great for people to see. Like this week I was with Catalina, we're making pies. People got to see her make sweet pies. They got to see me make empanadas, and then also I made a flat pie and just do it off the cuff. So I want people to see, like, a lot of people feel like, oh, I have to have this or that or do this in order to be creative, and I want to show that there's all different ways to be creative, and to get window into people's lives. Like Amira Brown was on, and she was in Tennessee at a residency. So that was cool for her to talk about. And maybe, there's been artists that come on. Steve Ham was a guest, but then he shared his the link for a new video that he's doing on the West River, and then asked for feedback. So it's like supposed to be, like part artist assignment, where Cynthia Rubin, she did a small drawing exercise, so like people do prompts, but then they talk about their life or share something that they're working on and get feedback. So I think that it is kind of different, and it is 2 hours, so we get to talk about a lot of different things, a variety of topics, and then people can also chime in too, which I like.
And do you feel that you've been able to, I don't even know that demystify would be the right word, but like I feel like sometimes with artists and creatives, money or fundraising is like it's like a bad word. But because we're living under this capitalist society, we need a certain amount to sustain creation. And so have you found that in having these conversations, you're maybe able to break through a wall that some people are feeling around creation, around being able to talk about all of its different elements?
Well, I wouldn't say I directly talk about money, but I do think that people are talking about how they live, like my first guest was one of my former students from my first student teaching class, actually. And he does comics, but he's always worked his own business. But he's a graphic designer for the state lottery. He has his own um, marketplace where he is a graphic designer. He makes t-shirts and posters and all that kind of stuff, and then he runs like comic conferences and stuff like that. And so like he's able to discuss like different ways in which he's had a full-time graphic design firm, and then what he's doing now, and that how he has multiple ways in which he makes his income. My friend Patty, last week, she lives up in New Hampshire and Western Mass, and she was working on old quilts that she made with old jeans and stuff like that. But then, she's a real estate mogul, her and her husband, and they're also filmmakers, but in order to make film, they did real estate, like,
Mm-hmm.
so it showed, like, and so she talked about her journey and all of that. So hopefully people get little glimpses of how um, I want to show people. Many times we look at people who are artists as starving artists. And so I want to provide a different narrative, especially for people who have spent their whole life or their career doing what they love and their vocation.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to quickly remind listeners or viewers that this is Arts Respond on WNHH Community Radio. I'm Lucy Gellman, and my guest today is Nadine Nelson. We are talking about her role as creative in residence at the New Haven Free Public Library, and we will also be talking about Peace Through Pie, and the sort of can I say the reemergence of Stir the Pot, Nadine?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, I saw this pop up sort of on my respective social media feeds. Um, just this eye that you've had towards self-care and how you have wrapped that into your practice at the library. So I would love to hear a bit more about that. And specifically, this weekend you're doing take and make spa kits, which I love. I just love that so much.
Um, well, I think that I'm trying to wrap around self-care and then also manifestation. So the idea that you can manifest what you want. And um the self-care, I think that has to do with manifestation. Like the way you treat yourself is the way energetically the world is going to treat you. So and then just this understanding, like as a woman, and then just during COVID, like we all need self-care. Like we are like the
Yeah.
manifestation of a malaise society. Like we have collective depression, probably collective anxiety, and collective, like not abusive, like how we treat ourselves. Because I've been saying to people everywhere outside of America, like people are much more joyful,
Yeah.
and they make time for joy. And as Americans, we want to insist on people working, 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 and people are working, and they're working, and they can't. Our standard of living for how much they work, it's just ridiculous. And so people don't have time for self-care. People don't feel like they can give time to self-care. But I feel like at this time it's really, really important because as we're seeing, like people getting sick, and when you have COVID and all that kind of stuff, we have to make sure that we make it a priority to take our vitamins, that we make it a priority to take a break, to be kind to ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, um, how we talk to each other. But, like when you see all this vitriol, it's like, how do those people talk to themselves? Like
Mm.
last week, I was like so mad about what happened on the Capitol. And I'm saying that, these people, their ex-wives are turning them in, their kids are turning them in. They must be awful individuals, and they must hate themselves. Like to go and defecate in the Capitol, like those are not people that are happy. And so I think that if we spent more time on self-care, we would see happier, more loving people. And that's what I like to see. And especially for women, which I know have taken the brunt of the responsibility of care during COVID, I think that it's really important. And just the notion that you can get things from your cupboard and your pantry and be able to create a sanctuary for yourself and a refuge. Um, I think that that's really important to illuminate and show people how to do that.
Absolutely. Um, and I like there's a weird buzzing, and so I briefly lost my train of thought. And I'm wondering if you can also talk about the collaboration. You mentioned that part of this is in collaboration with EcoWorks, which is a wonderful nonprofit that launched like a while. I mean, I remember covering them at least 5 or 6 years
Yeah.
ago. And they have since moved from downtown New Haven, but they're still doing work that really prioritizes environmental sustainability, which I think is part of this discussion of the ways in which the world and its residents are hurting. And so I'd love to know more about that collaboration.
Yeah, so I love EcoWorks because I like to use things that, were going to be discarded. And, they deal with um things that either could be discarded, or there's a large volume and people come and they donate things there. So it's really great for artists and teachers and people who like to do crafts. There's yarn, there's beads, there's paint, there's like everything. You can go online and look. They have paper. So when you're making these making take kits, you're making like at least 20 of them. And so you want to be cost effective. And it's great that they have all these different things. So I went there probably in November and decided like, okay, for 3 months, so I don't have to, go back. Like what can we use for the next 3 months for the make and take bags? I will always want to showcase them because I think that, when you're a parent, when you're a teacher, if you have an after school program, if you work with Girl Scouts, whatever, like it's great to be able to have at your disposal. And then even as an individual that crafted can be expensive. And so it's great that, like if you love jewelry, they have beautiful beads, charms, like it's, you have to be, I try and go every 3 months because I get a little crazy, and so they love me over there and I really appreciate them. They're very nice. Now you just call and you make an appointment. And I think they're open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And it's a lovely experience. Usually Trish is there. And I I really appreciate them and I appreciate what they do.
And it sounds like if you were there in November, did you know, hey, I really want to do this? Like, for instance, this take and make kit. Was it just an idea that sort of popped into your head? Have you been thinking about doing it for a while?
Um, I knew I wanted to do one on um the spa, like what I do, because I do that a regular class called spa cuisine at home. And so I thought that it would be fun to complement this. And then I also make my own, I've always made my own beauty products because my mom has really sensitive skin and I have really sensitive skin. So I only like pure things. So there's very few products that I buy, like Dr. Fromer's soap, because it's like, pure Castile. But so I make my own like body salts and all that kind of stuff because then I know the what I'm putting in it, with the essential oils and stuff like that. So and then I knew that like we talked about showcasing different machinery, and so they have a 3D printer. I also collaborate with Make Haven. Usually my co-create, I film it there at Make Haven. And I have branched out a little bit because we've been, trying to perfect the taping. So my daughter Soleil is my producer, my director, and my camera person.
I
So
love
all
that.
so all that teenage angst, like where they want to tell you what to do and they want to have an attitude. It's like, look, you can direct me, So she does that. And so there's one place that I sit and I do artwork, but then we've done stuff in the kitchen. So we perfected taping in the kitchen, which is a different kind of setting up. And then now as the spring kind of unrolls, I will, break into like using the I want to sew. So using the sewing machine, and I want to do stuff with the 3D printers, and I might do things with I can't on co-create go in the wood shop, but I want to do that
Mm,
kind of some of that kind of stuff myself. So I'm trying to push myself creatively with all the machines that are
absolutely.
there.
Yeah, and I should just say a quick plug for both the library and Make Haven. So Make Haven is open. The library is also open, even though its doors have remained mostly closed. And I think some people don't know that. I think some folks assume that the library kind of closed its doors and hasn't reopened them. But there's curbside pickup. Of course, there's what you're doing, and there's a fair amount of online programming.
Right. And then
Right.
you can use downstairs.
Yes.
So I don't know how that's set up, but you can use downstairs. You can get things printed for free. So I just think you can just go on the library website and find out about that. But you can use their resources for finding jobs. You can also get a hotspot. So if you need a hotspot, I don't think that people know that if you need a hotspot, you can get them. And I think they give them out maybe for 2 weeks at a time. So I just think
Yeah.
that is like an amazing thing that they offer to people, because I know that it's been hard, because even if you do have a router, if you have 6 people on it all day long, it
Oh,
might,
it craps out. Yeah. And Wi-Fi is expensive
yeah,
also.
yeah,
Yeah, things file under things that should be basic needs. But
exactly.
on that line of thought, actually, I want to pivot, as you said earlier, to stir the pot. And first, I would love for you to tell listeners a little bit about what the initial intention in the before times of Stir the Pot was. And then let's talk about how it's changing.
All right. So Stir the Pot came out of the New Haven Food Policy Council. I was the chair of the Cooking and Food Education Group. And so my idea of a meeting is an interactive meeting. So if you're going to be, talking about, food, cooking and food education, then we should be learning from each other. We should be eating food. We should be experiencing what a food system is about, as opposed to just talking about it. So we would have kind of interactive meetings. And then a couple years ago, the book Feed the Resistance came out.
Mhm.
And I had a interaction with Mark Bittman at Stone Barns, that I asked him a question about what we should do in regard to, like, I asked him specifically, as a white man, how does he hold himself accountable for basically, like, using your privilege to make the world a better place, which he talks about in regard to like equity and stuff like that, sustainability and blah, blah, blah. So it was an interesting interaction, and there was some media about it. And I felt some kind of way. And so I took that energy into when Feed the Resistance came out, and be like, okay, we're going to channel it into this. And I created this 6-week series around Feed the Resistance. So Feed the Resistance is a book by Julia Tersham, and it's a great book. You can get it at Atticus. I bought a bunch of copies at Atticus. They seem like they always have it there because people have gone and they've bought it, which is great. Support your local bookstore. And the the articles are really short. They're like 3 pages. And so Stir the Pot, what would happen is that we originally collaborated with City Seed and a lot of the other food organizations, where we first had it at City Seed. And so people would come. It was a potluck, so people would drop off their food, and then it was open to people in the food community and people who just want to know more about food. So people come, we'd start cooking, making something. And the reason why we started like that is because I wanted people not to get into their different silos and be all shy and everything, but just do what food does, create great fellowship. And so, we've done things where we collaborated with Sanctuary Kitchen, and we've done stuff at Common Ground. And so, where we made fresh spring rolls with herbs from Common Ground. Then when we finish for like half an hour, 45 minutes of cooking together, then we sit down and eat the wonderful food that everyone has brought, and we listen to a speaker. And then after the speaker, we read an article from Feed the Resistance, and then we talk about it. And then we talk about how can that influence us in regard to our realms of influence, and then what can we do in regard to our passions, to be able to make the world a better place. So some of us, like myself, are into food. So I do food programs. Some people want to grow food in gardens. And so, when people come to these meetings, there's a farmer from the land trust. So then people can understand, like, okay, you can find out where you can start a garden. So it's been really great, kind of mixing of all different types of people, and mixing in the truest sense of the word, because we still live in a very kind of segregated place, and there's not that many places, even in New Haven, that you see like intermixture. And what I like is, like, you see people from Yale, and you see people who are from New Haven. You see people that are part of food organizations, and might be part of politics in New Haven, but you just see regular people that are really interested in food and want to feel empowered and know how to do something about where they live. And that's what we provide in a fun, interactive kind of way. So
Yeah.
Peace Through Pie is a celebration of bringing back Stir the Pot. It went away because it is a big endeavor. We used to have like 20 to 60 people. It started when we had a bunch of Master Cook core members. A lot of them have moved away, until we do another cohort. And Austin Baranski, who used to be head of the New Haven Food Policy Council, we used to do it together. And so he has now moved. So it was really hard to be able to do this and have like just a very small team. And so I put it on hiatus, and then I wrote grants, and we got a grant from the Center of Arts and Activism to be able to roll this out. And we had a meeting with them on Monday, and they were like, we thought that things had, really, simmered down, and everything was going to be great, and everything was going to be easy. And then last week happened.
Oh
And
yeah.
so Stir the Pot is important more than ever. And so they're interactive food events. So this one is a pie event, and it's our kickoff, and it's to celebrate me getting a cover on Yankee Magazine and highlighting the organization Peace Through Pie, which brings people together around pie on Martin Luther King Day to talk about civil rights and the peace, and being together and showcasing each other's food, our culture. What I love about doing these pie events is that I'm more on the savory side. So, and then a lot of people don't know that there's so many great savory pies from
Hmm.
all around the world. I'm Jamaican, there's patties, but, there are meat pies from, you have Native American meat pies, you got African meat pies, you have, ham pies, you have, all different types of things. So that's what we're showcasing. And now that it's online, there'll be a database for people to know how to be able to do these events themselves. We have another event about gumbo and kind of like the metaphor of gumbo in America and how a really good gumbo um, keeps the integrity of its ingredients. And so it's important that we live in a very multicultural world. There's no need for people to assimilate, but to be able to share each other's culture. So around the making of gumbo to talk to each other, and we have lots of different questions that people can go on the website and be able to facilitate conversation, because we're trying to make people understand that in order to make change, we got to know each other. If we don't know each other,
Mm.
and I think that we're at the crossroads now between people calling um, people you know, libertards or whatever, like these different things, like people, that you have conservatives and all of it in many ways is like ridiculous, because the things that we need here as Americans are, our infrastructure is falling apart. Our schools, as we can
Yeah.
see, need an upgrade. Our teachers need help, our money that goes to the military, can it be redirected? Because it didn't seem like it stopped, like what happened last week.
Yes.
So we're trying to, around food, like set the tone to talk about deeper issues, but then also to make people feel that like the mayor of Boston, the new mayor of Boston or interim mayor of Boston, I know them. We were neighbors, and they actually, that family, the Janey family, instilled in me understanding about going to your community meetings. It doesn't matter if you're a
Mm.
renter. You need to go to your community meetings. You need to be involved. You need to, even if you can't be on the school board, you need to listen in the meetings and make your voice heard. And so Stir the Pot wants people to understand that your voice is important, that, people are like, what can we do? There's always something that you can do. And so when we do our kickoff for President's Day, we have a program that we're calling Fix Your Plate. And the whole notion is that we want people to get involved. And Mickey Halpern has an article that and Feed the Resistance, where she talks about, it's just like one page, and it's, can you be a leader? How can you be a follower? And what can you make a habit of? And if all of us thought about those things, are the circumference of where we live and where we are would all be better, and
Mm.
exponentially all be better. Circles of just people working together to make our society um, livable and joyful also, like it's like we want to go back to joy. And so even though food might seem frivolous, hopefully it can get people to sit at the table and have um discussions that would bring us together, and things that we have in common, to then break down things that we might not have in common that we need to be able to fix.
Yeah. Well, also, I don't think food is frivolous at all. But I will say in the last year and a half, and maybe this is part of a bigger arc, there has been a lot of, I would argue, like pretty necessary and overdue calling out in the food world. And I will say, I was living for the drama around Allison Roman. I was one of those terrible people who like experienced a little bit of Schadenfreude. Um, but I think that there is this conversation that maybe there wasn't, or I didn't hear even 5 years ago. And so I'm wondering for you, as you sort of relaunch this series, what's really present for you?
Well, it's present that it's really needed. It's present that people feel really defeated. It's present that people need direction as to, you know, look how we were able to change the election. Like I thought that
Yeah.
45 was going to win again. I really
Mm.
did. And it just shows the power of underground organizing. A person like Stacey Abrams, it took 10 years. And I don't think that people understand that. And I know that myself, I don't want to be a politician because I couldn't be in those meetings. And I don't think that people understand how long it takes to create a bill, to create change. But it can go faster if you have a whole bunch of people on board calling your congress people, your elder person, whatever. And if they see that, there is a bunch of people that want some change, you're going to have change. And so I want people, um, the sense of apathy that we have. And I also want people, it's like, if you want a third party, now's the time to start,
Yeah.
like, don't, like we get into this whole thing, like on social media and, where we just complain. It's like, what are you doing about it? What are you doing? And you can stay at home and write a letter. You can call. You don't even have to physically leave your house, so, but I want people to feel like it's our responsibility, like as a parent, for instance, that I can't depend on the school to teach my kid,
Mm.
so I have to think about what I can do and then hopefully do with other parents too, to see like what can we do to make the school a better place. You can't only depend on, an underfunded institution to be able to do all these wonderful things that there are not enough people to be able to do. So if I, as a parent, can teach a couple cooking classes for kids, then I hope that I can be able to do that. Now, New Haven Public Schools allow me to do that, making it easy. That's another thing. But that's why it's so great to be working with the library because, I'm trying to do programs that speak to parents and kids and the stuff that we're going through during this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've asked a couple people this as sort of as we're winding down, but it's so evident to me that you create these spaces of care and of relaxation and of de-stressing and just like space and discussion for other people. How do you foster that for yourself?
Well, I've been from last year when I started doing, when I was curating the installation for Oshun, who's the goddess of love, the Yoruba goddess of love from Nigeria, West Africa, and, delving into self love and self care and understanding that, self love, self care, self first, and I think
Mm.
that oftentimes we feel like putting ourselves first is being selfish, especially as a mother, but it's like that whole metaphor of getting oxygen, and you have to put on your oxygen first. If I'm not well, Soleil's not going to feel well. I'm not going to be operating at my optimum and being a happy mom, like. And um it's important that, especially with all the things that are going on in our society, that you have to take care time for yourself. So, I have a lot of jobs. I've been making sure that I watch movies. I've been making sure that I take a bath like every couple of days. And I drink, tea every morning. I make
Mm.
my chai and I make a ritual of making it, like with my different spices, and I hand mix it myself,
Mm.
Um, I do, like facials and, stuff like that. And I read and I do my art. I love doing art. So that has been really great because, I usually travel if it wasn't COVID. So I've had a lot of time just to hunker down and um, do things that make me happy and making that paramount.
Yeah. Oh, I feel good just hearing your words. So if people want to find you at the library, I know that you said you have office hours virtually on Tuesdays.
Yep.
Um, and how can they do that? And then also, I have the page for the Power of Pi pulled up, but I would love to also let folks know how they can find that.
All right. So with the library, you can just go to the New Haven Public Library and Eve Squared. They have a tab for CIR and EIR, so creative in residence and entrepreneur in residence. And as I said, I encourage people to also contact the entrepreneur in residence if you feel that that's a better fit. You know, like we refer people to each other. You can talk to both of us, you know. And you can see at all times my different programs. Co-create, you can either watch it on Facebook, you can register for it, and then watch it on Zoom also. All my programs are always on Facebook. Um, they they stream them live when I'm doing them, and there's always the video. So even if you haven't seen it, you can be able to see it afterwards taped. And then for the Power of Pie, um, you can register for it via Facebook. Yeah, there's a registration link. There's a Google registration link, and it's long, so I don't know what to say to people, but hopefully you can maybe put the information underneath this
I can
when
drop that. Yep,
yeah. So like
absolutely.
if you're not affiliated with Facebook, and I understand a lot of people aren't, then there's a registration link, and we just ask for you to register so we can send you the Zoom link.
Beautiful.
And then you can go to, what am I talking about? You can go to stirthepot.online, and there's an events tab, and all the information is there. So stirthepot.online.
Well, I want to thank you so much. I also want to put in a plug. You mentioned it briefly, but for your piece in Yankee Magazine, which was the December issue, December 2020.
It came out in December, but it's for the January, February issue. So we
Oh,
have a lot of,
beautiful.
long time to be able to make pie. There are 5 pies in there, and they're really good. This one behind me is a spiced civil rights pie, like a sweet potato. And there is a pear, cranberry, and cheddar cheese, which is the cover. And there is a Puerto Rican lasagna, or shepherd's pie, I call it. And there is an Indian pot pie. And I think that's it. I don't know if I
Oh
missed something.
man.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm hungry. So I think I've
Oh,
got to.
there's a seasonal one. There's a seasonal pie that uses parsnips and all the great, pretty vegetables of winter, that uses
Amazing.
phyllo dough. So
Awesome.
the recipes are really good, and I appreciate people giving me feedback of them making them. I love pictures, but I tried to make them easy that you could be able to buy store-bought crust or be able to make your own.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. We will also drop the link to that article under the interview, which is streaming on Facebook Live and will also be available under WNHH Radio on SoundCloud. Nadine Nilsson, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
have a beautiful MLK Day weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.